Hello folks, and a warm welcome. You're tuned in to my meditation, the Outdoors series. My name's Guy Cross, and I'll be introducing you to some interesting people with some interesting ways of using the outdoors to help sustain a healthy frame of mind. With being an outdoor lover myself, and using the outdoors to take care of my own mental health, I've always been curious as to how other people use outdoor hobbies and activities to take care of themselves, and that curiosity led me to the birth of this podcast series. My guests will talk about their favourite outdoor hobby, and we'll go into depth of how it helps them find peace of mind. Hopefully one of, if not many of the hobbies within this series will help you, or at the very least inspire you. And that's the whole aim of these podcasts, to fill you with ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before, and to hear some positive, encouraging, real-life stories from my guests. Sometimes, hearing someone else's perspective on a hobby or activity gives you a fresh new way of looking at it, which can't be a bad thing, right? So without further ado, let's meet this week's guest. Hello everyone. So today I'm on the phone with Kat Foster. She's from Wiltshire in the UK, and Kat is an ecologist and mainly doing species surveys, habitat creation and conservation work. Kat suffers from anxiety, and she also suffers from agoraphobia. And so hello Kat, how are you today?
Hiya. Hello, yes I'm good, thank you.
Good. All well down in Wiltshire?
Oh God, yeah, but it's very overcast now, but still happy to be here, obviously.
The good old British weather, eh? It's quite nice up here,
Yeah.
actually. It's not too bad, so yeah, cool. So can we just start by talking about your ecologist position? I mean, what can you tell the listeners a little bit more about that?
Well, I just survey ecosystems and species for conservation and research purposes, but I also improve and create habitats for priority species. But I do a lot of bat work, so I work with bats a lot for scientific and construction reasons. So I ensure that bat roosts are not destroyed,
Okay.
and make sure there's proper mitigation strategies for construction, because we've got 17 bat species that breed in the UK, but all have suffered horrendous decline in populations over the last 50 years, and a lot of it is due to destruction of bat roosts.
Really?
Yes, it's really sad, really sad, because they only have one pup a year, and if that is disturbed, they will not breed that year, and that has this knock-on effects. And over the last 50 years, because obviously also agricultural practices now and habitat loss, it's just built up to a point where they've declined horrendously. So
Wow.
Proper mitigation strategies need to be involved in all construction.
Wow, yeah, it's just something you don't really think about unless you're into it. I mean, is there any endangered species of bats then?
Oh yes, yeah.
Really?
Most of our mitosis species are nearly all endangered. They're all protected under the law, so it is illegal to disturb or damage a roost. Knowingly, obviously,
Yeah.
These things do happen.
Yeah.
But yes, it's illegal. I mean, they're very highly protected bats.
Wow. So this is like, are you talking about new builds as well, like putting kind of buildings in the way of the roots, so to speak?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
if there are known routes, or if say a construction firm has decided to remove we call them mature trees, but they can be any trees really, and perhaps they're used by certain species, then they have to have a mitigation strategy. So they either need to attach something to the homes so bats can use them, or they need to know that they're going to replant. But of course, that's never the best way. It's always best to keep these things if possible, so to work around them rather than remove them.
Right. Yeah.
But they will be given different strategies, and they can choose from one. But we would always strongly recommend not to remove things like that, because those things can't be really replaced.
Yeah.
Even if you try to regrow, it's never quite the same.
Yeah, and it's essential to the bats, like you say as well, right? So.
Oh, yes. Well, it's everything. It's the invertebrates as well. Without the invertebrates, you will not have a healthy bat population.
Yeah.
And that's another problem with the way we farm these days. We're losing so many invertebrates that we lose everything else that is sort of connected to them on the food chains.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
And so, is there other little animals that you kind of work, well, not with, but
loads.
with the same kind of problems where you have to make sure that there's nothing on the ground, so to speak, when they're starting to build things?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
loads. Yeah,
yeah.
there's great crested newts. Yeah, there's a lot of different populations of species that you're not allowed to disturb. But some of them don't come under law. Some people decide they choose to tell you about these things and ask for mitigation strategies. And this is not a cheap thing to do. But some people are so sort of kind-hearted and thoughtful about certain creatures that they'll actually pay for these mitigation strategies for you to tell them how to look after. Because something like a common lizard is not protected under law. Yet people may ask you, well, how can I help this? If I build this shed in my garden, how can I help these lizards? And I think that's just a really lovely thing.
Yeah.
Even if they're not protected by law, because obviously some people do it because it is law.
Yeah.
But some people do it for the fact that they don't want to cause stress or harm to different species.
Yeah. What an interesting job.
Oh, I love it. I do love it. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds very
I can't
interesting.
imagine myself doing anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, not long, because this is my second career, if you like. It was after I became unwell, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while. I changed my entire outlook on life. I was studying to be a psychiatrist.
Okay.
Yes, and I completely swapped when I became unwell, and I found that nature was my medication.
Yeah.
I thought I've got to do something about it. I've got to save this.
Yeah.
So I changed my degree entirely. I did an
Fair play.
ecology degree. Yeah, I did. I entirely changed everything.
Yeah.
And I started studying again. And I thought, no, I'm going to be an ecologist. And that's exactly what I did do. So really, it's only been about 4 years. I mean, I studied because I did an honours degree. I've been studying for, 4 years before that. So 8 years and all. But actually, as an ecologist, 4 years.
Yeah. Well, well done for changing things around
Thank you.
suit your needs and lifestyle.
Yeah, and it is because of the support of people around me. Because it's very hard to live and to change yourself like that when you're sort of got into your 20s. It's difficult. But I thought if I don't, I'm never really going to be part of society again.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it really, and I thought I've got to save this because this is the only thing that truly makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, you just said then about things that you suffer from, and I mentioned at the beginning you suffer from anxiety and agoraphobia. Do you want to talk to the listeners a little bit about that, of when it how that became part of your life? And
yes, when I was very young, I used to always be a little bit worried about pretty much everything. And I presume that was anxiety, but I can't really think back on it because it never altered my behaviour. I still did things that most children would do, but I remember always feeling quite anxious about things, overly so, more than other children I would notice. But then when I got into my 20s, I sort of was in towns and cities a lot and working a lot and at college, and I was pushing myself all the time, progress. And I found myself feeling very anxious and unwell. And when I was walking to work one day, I could no longer walk. I had to run. Right. And when I got to my place of work, I shut the door behind me and I suddenly felt relaxed. And unfortunately, that was me learning agoraphobia. So my anxiety then, because agoraphobia is a social anxiety. And my agoraphobia, I realised, grew from that moment. After that, more and more I wanted to be indoors. More and more I felt safe indoors rather than outdoors. Yeah. And I find that agoraphobia is more about being embarrassed, to be anxious and afraid and feel unwell outside in front of people. Right. It's sort of more about embarrassment and shame than it is about danger.
Right, yeah, because before I'd spoken to you, agoraphobia to me, I thought it was people that were afraid of kind of wide open spaces, like
that's
but there's more depth to it, isn't there? There's different
it's a very strange illness, because I think if I walked for 100 miles from when I was at my worst, had I walked for 100 miles from my door and saw no one, I doubt I would feel anything. But if I thought I was going to see somebody, or if I did see somebody, I would have panicked. Yeah. Because it's the idea that I would feel unwell or feel embarrassed and upset in front of another human. Yes, if the world was full of dogs, I'm sure I wouldn't have cared less and nothing would have happened to me. But it's a fear of feeling trapped and ashamed. You feel like you may get trapped in a situation, feel unwell or start to show anxiety and then be embarrassed or ashamed in front of a person.
Right. So being socially active, and even how is it for going to things like shops or shopping malls or?
It was like asking me to go up Everest. If you would have told me when I was at my worst, because I was at one point not just confined to a house but confined to a room. And at that point, if you would have told me to go into a shop, it would be like you saying, pop up Everest and stick a flag up there really quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt impossible. It felt like I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
That's how difficult the idea of going into a shop would be. Yeah, because it's a very enclosed space. That would look like a trap.
Yeah.
It would be suffocatingly so. I would panic before I got in the shop. I would panic thinking about getting in that shop. Probably.
Yeah, I guess it gets to that stage, doesn't it, where you start feeling the pressure even before it's begun. You're just making things up in your own mind. Yeah.
It's made up. Yeah, it's completely irrational. Nobody cares about you. And that's something I had to learn very slowly, that no one really cares how you're feeling or what you're doing. Strangers have got a lot going on. They've got a lot of things happening to them. They've got stuff to do. They don't care that you look a bit red and sick, because they don't know that you do. But of course, for an agoraphobic, you believe that everyone can read you like a book. They can see that you look foolish and you're already ashamed. And it's not even happened. You've not even seen anyone yet.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the worst thing about agoraphobia, is that you cut yourself off from society entirely. You are no longer part of society, which makes it even worse, because you will never come in contact with anyone to prove that you're actually not that bad.
So when did this all begin for you? Like, what age were you when you kind of it became a real problem?
Yeah, I think it was my early 20s, but it was a building thing. So I still worked as normal and things like I still pretended everything was okay. I lied a lot. I would hide it all the time. No one knew I was ill for about 3 years.
Wow,
and
really?
It only got to the point of where I had to. But unfortunately, I worked for a private mental health home and it closed down. And because of that, I couldn't go to interviews, because I literally couldn't go to an interview. I couldn't go sit down in an interview. So I had to go back home. I left home at 16. So going back home was even more shameful. Actually made it a lot worse for me because I felt even more embarrassed. And I felt even more cut off. So so it must have been my mid-20s, but it really started in my very early 20s. But I had to go back home in my mid-20s.
Yeah. Wow. So when did you begin to get into the outdoors, and when did you start realising that, the outdoors was going to was your meditation? Yeah,
well, to be funny, I was always an outdoor child. My mum and dad, we didn't have a lot of money. So when we went away to Wales and Scotland and Lake District, it was all about, our entertainment was walking. It was walking, going up mountains. It was swimming. It was everything that was free. Yeah. So I was always a little green child and I loved gardening stuff. And like I said, when I first moved into a town and I started putting a lot of pressure on myself, I'd lost my connection to nature altogether. In fact, I lived in a little bedsit at one point, and then I lived in a little tiny fishing house. And there was no green spaces. I went from a town to a city and I just did nothing else in between. So I lost all of that. And going back to that is because I went back home. And after taking quite a lot of different proper therapies, I did try proper therapies apart from medications. I did try CBT therapy, which is cognitive behavioural therapy, NLP therapy, and breathing techniques, etc. But they didn't help. So my father said to me, what you should do is perhaps sign yourself up for a volunteer group. And I did. I signed myself up volunteering, coppicing in a local wood close to me. And I knew I didn't have to go if I didn't want to. I didn't have to speak to anyone if I didn't want to. But it was a way of being outdoors and being sort of social. You didn't have to. I mean, most of the time I stood quietly because I didn't really want to have to mingle with anyone at the time. I was in too bad a way. But I found then that very slowly that built a sort of foundation in me where I realised, oh my God, actually being outside is making me feel a hell of a lot better than all the therapies I had taken up to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that therapies do not work. I'm sure they do for many, many people. But those therapies, unfortunately, at the time didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, and I found that being outside and being helpful somehow built a foundation in me. And after that, I went out more and more and more. Sometimes at night, if I was feeling very bad, it would be nighttime walks. And sometimes during the day, if I was feeling a bit braver. And over time, I built that up, and I found that being outside really was my therapy.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And did that help also with the little group you said you joined? Did that help with being around people as well?
Yes. So after a little while, I got more and more involved in that group. So it went from me sort of eating my food, because we had lunches together and we all ate outside and stuff. So it went from me eating my food in a corner to me sitting with them, to me chatting with them, to me talking about life with them. And it did build. And because they were very similar people to myself, so they were people who enjoyed nature, who were gentle. And I'm not saying that people in towns and cities are not gentle, but they're very busy.
Yes.
Very busy people.
Yeah.
But these people I found had time.
Had time for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't forced or fake, or they didn't want anything from me. They just wanted to spend time with people like themselves in nature. So we would talk about natural things, and I started learning more and more. And I found that really built my self-esteem and self-confidence, because I don't know how other people with social anxieties feel, but I felt like social anxiety really stripped a lot of my self-confidence and self-belief away.
Yeah.
And very slowly learning the new skills there, learning new things. And actually at this point, I decided this was my career. So this is when I started my new education as well.
Yeah.
All those things really built up, and being social and learning that actually I can be social without panicking immediately really did help my self-esteem. And I believed in myself a lot more. So I started doing a lot more things like that. So I actually started a walking club as well with my partner. So that was another, yeah. So we built slowly up, and then we started doing it for fun instead of just this voluntary. I still love all the voluntary stuff, but you know what I mean, as an actual social club as well. So that was another nice part of that.
Nice. Yeah, that's where I was going to lead on to actually. I know you joined this group and that helped you, and then from there did you go on to like hikes and like bigger exploration, so to speak? Were you getting out there a little bit more?
We did. We started doing major hikes, first close to home, so I didn't feel like I had to travel, because again, agoraphobics can feel like if they've done something big or they're going to do something to show up for another person, it can feel very trapping, and that can cause an anxiety attack.
Right. Okay.
So I would do it close to home, because I thought, well, you know what? Then I could leave. If I don't like it, I can go, and I'm not trapped. And then we did it further away and further away and further away. And in the end, we were sort of, my partner, Kerry, he started deciding he wanted to do full challenges for people like Papyrus, the mental health charity.
Yeah.
For younger people.
Okay.
And I would go, I didn't sign up for that, but I did all of the walks with him, all the training walks with him and the great big group that we had. And they all did it. And I thought that was just absolutely wonderful. And I think watching other people succeed as well in nature is also really beautiful.
Yeah.
And you start to see other people changing. And I even saw the confidence built in Kerry. Kerry's never had issues with anxiety, but for sure he's had problems with self-esteem, and you could see the way he built up confidence within nature, within himself. He has got terrible vertigo, and there he was balancing himself, walking along ridges, and it really did build confidence in him. And honestly, he's gone up and up and up in his career, in his personal life. With his friends is just fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing.
He's absolutely soared from those years, and I think together we have built this sort of outdoor life.
Yeah,
and it has affected all of our inner life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So everything seems to have improved from there. I'm not saying it's some sort of miracle cure, but for sure it's just we've built upon it. It's like a foundation that you build upon. Yeah.
No, that's really good, and it's great that you've both got each other to kind of do that together with. That you've both got the same kind of passion and everything that you're helping each other with, and you're both facing your fears, aren't you? Really, and you're kind of
exactly
overcoming them. And it's making you a stronger person.
That's an ideal way of putting it. That's exactly what it is. And Kerry was never a natural hiker. His family never did that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But my goodness, he's like a little mountain goat now. Hugely proud of him. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, there's another guy I'm just thinking of as we're speaking. I've just done a podcast with him, and he's hiked. He'd never hiked before ever, and he's lost so much weight. And I think he was on number 84. His 84th hike up Snowdon.
Wow.
And that's within the space of, I think, a year or 2 years or something like that.
Wow. That's so fat. When you think about how quick that is,
unbelievable.
That progress is huge.
Unbelievable. It was such
people could spend their life trying to get to that point. So that's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. It just goes to show. And, he, again, he's saying exactly the same. He just feels like he's just overcome certain things in his life, and it's just made him a lot happier, and he just can't wait to get out there and do it all again. That's wonderful. He's like, even on his way down from Snowdon, he says, I'm thinking of the next time going up, even when I'm...
That's it. Like, we do that. We say, we should do over there next time. We see like a little path. We go, we'll do that next time whilst we're on that walk.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But that's great, isn't it? I mean, it's just, you're so in the moment. You're so like present at that time, just your surroundings and everything. It just opens your mind, and it just takes your worries away, doesn't it?
Completely agree. Yeah.
So no, that's amazing. Like, so I mean, how does it really help with your anxiety and agoraphobia? For example, say I don't know, if you're having like a moment of bad anxiety or something, do you kind of take yourself out to the outdoors to kind of resolve that kind of situation?
Every time,
yeah.
Every time. I don't know a time that I don't. And even if it's just my own garden, I'm often gardening, and I find if I've had a really long day walking around a marsh or something, and I've had to be with a group of people, I can find myself sort of a bit bereft, and I think I've got to do this again tomorrow. And sometimes I feel like, I can't. I feel just too het up. I can't. And I will spend half an hour in my garden, just pottering, looking in my ponds, just messing around. And I think it's about allowing yourself just a small amount of time just to look at details, be in the moment, and realise that you're not that big. You're not that important. I think a lot of the time we believe our issues are massive and we're this big important thing. And then I see these tiny creatures, and I see, even little sort of nymphs in the water. And I think I'm just nothing. I'm nothing compared to this. And it almost sounds depressing, but it isn't.
No,
what I mean by that is we're this tiny cog, this tiny weeny dot on this huge world.
Yeah.
And we're really nothing, and our problems are really nothing.
No, we do concentrate on ourselves too much, don't we?
I really believe that, yes. And I think that blows it up. And then you think, it's not that important. If I did really panic, what would it matter?
Yeah.
What does it matter if I panicked in front of someone?
Yeah.
I'm sure no one would really care. And to be honest, I have had a full-blown panic attack in front of people before, and no one sodding noticed.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single person. No, the only person that knew was Kerry, and that's only because he knows tiny changes in my behaviour or even voice. And he was the only one that knew. And he gave me a few minutes, a few cuddles and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, shush, because I never like it noticed. But it's interesting that nobody else noticed.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how much it's in your own head, isn't it? Or I'm not saying in your own head, but you're obviously feeling not great inside, but it's not visually noticeable.
When I'm like that, I feel like I'm screaming it. I feel like there's a great big sign above my head, but yeah, nobody noticed.
Yeah, you got away with that one.
I got away with it, yeah.
So how is your anxiety and everything to this day? I mean, if you were to go shopping somewhere, obviously, I suppose you go food shopping and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's
all possible, and I don't really get too much issue, but I still do have days where I just think, I could do without everyone and everything. And sometimes it's just a hormonal issue, or you're just feeling a little bit down, or something's happened in your life where you just feel a little bit strange, and that can have a bit of a knock on. But usually it's because I have not slept well or something similar to that.
Yeah.
But those days I will just make sure that I get out a little bit more, and I always push myself to do those things, because I learned agoraphobia. Social phobias come from a learnt behaviour. So I learned to be agoraphobic. You have to unlearn it. It's like unlearning to write or read, and it takes a long time, but you mustn't go backwards. If you can ever help it, try and always push forward. So if it's something you really don't want to do a small amount of it. You can go home if you don't like it, but not doing it at all is probably the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I know, and it's the problem is it's the easiest thing to do, isn't it? Is to do nothing.
I'm afraid so.
I mean, we're all guilty of that. I procrastinate over certain things, and I think I just need to do it. And once you do it, you think, what was I making such a big deal of it?
What was I worrying about there? Yeah, but I do have other little tricks. That I use if I'm out and I panic, because sometimes if I've done a lot of miles and I get a little bit tired, I can start to panic. I use like ID books. I know that sounds a bit of a strange one, but I love ID books. I pull one out, I look at something very small, very little, a certain grass or a certain fungi, and I try and figure out what it is in my book. And I don't know what it is about that, but it centers my brain. It just sort of clicks it off. Wow. And I can no longer hear the worry. It just clicks it off, and all I can do is centre on this one tiny aspect of a fungi.
Yeah.
And it really does work. So if anyone's out there, that does work, guys. Yeah. So take your ID books with you.
That's great. I've never heard of that before, to be honest with you. And that's such a great idea, because it just takes your focus, by the sounds of it, off your problems directly onto that.
Yeah, a lot of times in therapy, you'll be told to focus on the moment. And that's a really hard thing to be told, because when you're panicking, focusing on your name is difficult. Mm-hmm. So to be told to focus on the moment is a very difficult concept, but that does it. That does it. And it's instant as well. So if anyone ever needs it, it's an instant thing. Pick up a piece of grass and try and figure out what it is from an ID book. So
you must be pretty clued up on grass and fungi by now.
I am actually. Oh, that's embarrassing.
That's a talent. It's a skill. It's something.
It's a talent. Thank you. Thank you. It's not boring at all.
No,
it's a talent.
It's a talent, definitely. Definitely. Oh, fair play. My next question actually it was going to say, has there been a time in your life where you've been really quite down and there's been something really bothering you and you've been quite depressed, and you've actually used, the outdoors or your books to get you through a really tough time in your life?
Yes, I mean many times, but I think when I was at my worst was when those things were needed the most. And one of the things I also used to do a lot, I mean I still do, I love it, is forest bathing. I remember one day I'd gone quite backwards and I was really struggling to leave the house, and my father said, why don't I take you down the decoy? There was a little decoy quite close to me. They were all pine trees, but it was a forestry thing. And I went down there and I did some forest bathing. And honestly, that took me from the edge. I was really on the edge because I'd been trying so hard, yet I felt like I was going backwards.
Yeah. Can you just explain what forest bathing is?
Yes. Okay. Well, forest bathing really is just about, it's my understanding of meditation outside. So it's like, it's just a way of being very calm and quiet with nature. You just sit, normally I would sit with my back to a tree so I can feel it.
Yep.
And I just smell things gently, and I listen to sounds, but I listen to things close to me and far away from me. And I try and hear things close to me and far away from me. It might be the wind in the grass next to me, and perhaps a bird, 10 miles away from me. And I try and hear these little things. Yeah. And it's a way of sort of centering yourself. But really what I found is that I talk fast, I act fast, and I move fast. But this forced me to be terribly slow. Very, very slow and very relaxed. It was my idea of being calm and quiet without meditation. I don't fit well with meditation, but this is my form of meditation. And it forces you to take in small details, but very easily. So you don't need things. There's no props. You just literally sit against something. It doesn't have to be a tree. It can be a stone. Anything you can feel that you feel safe against. And just breathe it in for a while. And just that is way of me calming everything, slowing yourself down. And in a way, it's also about giving yourself permission. If you say, I'm going to forest bathe, it's almost like saying, this is my permission to be gentle and slow. I don't have to be anywhere, get anywhere, or act in any certain way. Yeah. Because sometimes with hiking, you say, I've got to get to A to B to B to C.
Yeah. You have to plan it sometimes. Yeah, it can be quite a stressful procedure you're
That's
a stressful
it.
kind of person. It can
I
be.
completely agree. But with forest bathing, it's literally just about you. It's your moment. You can listen to whatever the hell you want to, feel what you want, smell what you want, but just give yourself some time to be slow. Because I find people with anxieties, well, I certainly do, and some of the people that I knew that had anxiety certainly did, were very fast speaking, fast acting, fast thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that builds it. And forest bathing for me really is just about relaxation in a way that I understand. So being calm with nature, just smelling things, touching things and listening to things with no reason, no rhyme nor reason, just doing it for the sake of being there.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? When you explain it like that, that's exactly what I get from cycling especially when I'm working. I work not far from you. I work in Wiltshire. Do you remember me saying
Lovely.
it? Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
So I'm right by the canals there. So when I work down there, I cycle along the canals quite often on my breaks, and with no other intention than to look, listen, and that's it. Not to listen to music, not for nothing. I'm doing it just for my own mental wellness, So I'm just.
And I bet that really works as well. I bet that clears all of that feeling out.
Absolutely, 100%. And I keep saying it. I even come up with solutions to problems or ideas or something.
I love that.
I
love that.
Not intentionally. I'll just be cycling along and I'll think, oh yeah, I could do that on blah blah blah.
Well, yeah, but that's that open-mindedness you were talking about earlier, being able to have your mind open.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes ideas do come to us much easier when we're not thinking about them, which is a bit of a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But I think often you think, oh yeah, I could do that. That would be cool. Whilst you're not thinking about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And your mind's not like full of other stuff. You're not trying to. You're not thinking of anything. I'm just purposely out there to enjoy my cycle ride, to just see what's in front of me, to listen, to smell, to exactly what you've just said then, really.
I
about
love that.
Sitting
down. That's
down.
great. Yeah. Well, I think that's what it's about. It's about the way that you understand it. You don't have to, copy anyone else. It's about how you understand being calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
And it's different for everyone. That's why I think I don't get on with conventional idea of meditation. I think this is meditation, but, the conventional idea. I think it's because nobody is the same. Like nobody can get the same feeling from the same thing. And I think everyone's trying to reach that. But if you go out without the intention to try and reach that, just to relax and just to be calm in your own space, I'm almost sure everybody could feel that. It's a strange thing. I think sometimes if you force yourself to relax, it's not going to happen. But if you just let yourself be calm, it just seems to come to you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why this podcast is called My Meditation, because everyone's got their own meditation. Like for me it's cycling, for you it's sitting, forest bathing, everyone's, and that's I believe everyone's hobby or interest is a meditation, because
yes, I agree.
It's just taking, you're enjoying it, you're in the moment, you're focusing on what you're doing right there, right now. So yeah, I'm exactly the same as you as well. I've tried meditation, I've tried sitting there, I can't do it. It's just not for me. I've tried it and I've thought, yeah, okay, I feel okay after that kind of thing. But I get way more benefit off going for a cycle ride for an hour than I would for meditating for an hour.
I totally understand that.
And that's just me personally. I know not everyone's like that. Some people really enjoy meditating, and
God, yeah,
it's fair enough. But for me, I'm more visual, definitely. So yeah, that's where I get my meditation from. Cycling, hiking. Yeah.
Oh, definitely hiking. Oh, I love a bit of hiking. But I also think it's the physical part. So for me, it's also the physical part of it, because with hiking, I feel like it really raises my energy. It gives me real positive mood. And I know that's not really a part of relaxation, but as mental health goes,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like after a good hike, my mental health is up.
Yeah. Isn't it? Is it your endorphins? It releases a lot. So that's why you get that kind of high when you get off the hike. You feel tired, but once you've had a shower and you sit down, you just feel great in yourself, don't you?
Yeah, completely agree. I feel great for days. I think it's one of those things. And if I haven't had a hike for a little while because the weather's awful or things are happening at work or Kerry can't get off work, then you do start to feel it. I start to feel a bit drained and draggy.
Yeah.
It's really strange. Even if I've been out loads, I still need a good old proper walk out, like a really knackering walk out.
Yeah, definitely does you the world of good for sure.
Yeah.
So why would you recommend like hiking in the outdoors to anyone, and especially like people who suffer from anxiety and agoraphobia? I mean, what would you say to them? Why would you encourage them to go down the path that you've gone down?
Well, I think again, a lot of walking is about, like you said before, there's planning involved. If you're hiking, there's planning involved. There's sometimes it can be a little bit dangerous. It can be a little bit especially if you're map reading, or there's somewhere where it may be a little bit like Snowdonia, where you could put yourself in a little bit of danger. I believe it really builds self-esteem, self-confidence, and also I think it puts you back into society. A lot of people with bad social anxieties and agoraphobia will lose their place in society. It's a sad fact. If you're not earning a load of money, you find yourself right on the edge of society. Nobody wants to be bothered with you. And there's a mental health help is poor. Anyone can say what they like. I had to beg, scream and borrow just to get the mental health help I did get, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So it's not as though mental health help is really that ready for you. So you need to get out there. And I believe when you're helping yourself physically and mentally by getting out, being in nature, being in green spaces, it builds self-esteem, self-confidence and self-belief, those things that have been stripped away from you from that anxiety. And you stop becoming your own worst enemy. A lot of times when people have really bad anxieties, they stay in their homes or they get sluggish and they don't go out. I think that's the worst way to be. I think that puts you in a trap that you won't get out of. You'll just be chasing your own tail because you don't believe in yourself anymore.
Definitely. I agree
genuinely
with that.
think, yeah, and pushing yourself. Now, on your bike, you could probably do a bit longer, and you do that bit longer, and you think, oh, see, I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm physically able. And I think that really does build something in people. I think it's all about building belief and empowering yourself. It's very, very empowering when you get out and enjoy things like that. But it's not just that. For me, I learned a lot of new skills, which I still employ to this day. And obviously I employ literally in my workspace, but not everyone has to become the ecologist or anything.
Yeah.
But I found it was really good for me. Obviously, I'm a bit of a believer in education as well. I believe education is really important to a person. I think whatever you believe in, and I don't just mean written education, there's lots of forms of education.
Yeah, of course.
I believe that whatever you're in, you should learn as much as you can about it, physically and written. I just think for me, it's been really my saviour.
Yeah.
It's my absolute saviour. I'm not someone who will take medications, and I had a lot of people pushing a lot of medications onto me, and I always felt very embarrassed by not taking them. In fact, I felt people didn't believe I was unwell because I didn't take them.
Right, yeah.
I did get a lot of sly looks from GPs because I wouldn't take medications. But I explained that it wasn't for me personally. I don't disbelieve in them. They just weren't for me personally. And again, because of that, I felt like perhaps I wasn't helping myself. Perhaps it was my fault because I wasn't helping myself. But you will soon find, if you find your place within nature, and if you get out there and if you push yourself a little bit within nature, you start to feel that confidence grow and you realise that you are helping yourself. And it makes a massive difference to look after yourself, a huge difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with more 100% with everything you said, And I think the hardest thing for most people is starting, isn't it? Is getting out there,
I agree.
Or even just pushing yourself to go for that walk. I mean, the amount of times I've felt a bit, I can't be bothered today, and then I've kind of picked myself up, I've got myself on the bike, or I've put my walking boots on and got out there. As soon as I'm out for not even a couple of minutes, I'm like, I'm glad I've done this.
This is it.
Instantly, but it's so easy to just sit there and do nothing and
I know.
Put the TV on
Completely
or
agree.
put YouTube on and watch loads of crap in a way, and it doesn't make you feel good, does it? You might think you're doing the best thing for yourself at the time, but in actual fact, just getting out there and
like I said, mental health can sometimes feel like nobody gives a monkeys. It does feel like that sometimes, or perhaps they don't believe you because it's not physical. It can't be seen.
That's what I was saying before about your agoraphobia, and you were saying, like no one else noticed I had a panic attack kind of thing, and it's all internal, isn't it?
Yeah, and often people with social anxieties will bury it. I mean, you would never know. Half the people, even if it's extreme, some people can feel like they're having an actual heart attack. They will hide it because it's so embarrassing and shameful. And so it can lead to a point where you just think, well, I'll always hide it and I'll never help myself because no one else will help me. Yeah. Well, listen, man, you've got to get out there. You've got to start small. Like, enjoy your own garden, your own green spaces, very local. Be local. You don't have to go mental. You have to go right up to Scotland. If you live in the south, you have to go up to Scotland and climb Ben Nevis. Like, go outside in your garden. Just enjoy small things first. Plants and plants. Learn how to grow from seed. I mean, there's simple things, but they really make a difference. Like you said, get yourself a nice bike. Perhaps have a local bike ride along the canals, and then go a bit, get yourself a mountain bike and go up a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. You just start small.
It's all about building.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Have you got a story of gratitude to tell us today? Have you ever found yourself a moment or scenario in life where you've just felt really so grateful for the most simple things in life?
Oh my goodness, like 1,000 times. But one thing that sticks out in my mind is when I was 21, my dad's an artist, and when I was 21, he painted me this most beautiful picture of me as a child on Castle Rig Stones in the Lake District near Keswick.
Yeah.
And that is a genuine photo. It was a photo he took of me when I was little, sitting on one of the stones, and he painted it for me, and my hands are out, and all of these most beautiful places, my favourite places in the world, like Portmeirion, they're all on there, all these beautiful places. And I used to look at, when I was really ill in my mid-20s, I had that hung actually in my bedroom, and I used to look at it and I used to think, I'm never going to be there again. I genuinely thought I would never go there again. And when me and Kerry decided to go to the Lake District, it was the first place he took me. And I think I sat in that stone circle and cried for about an hour.
Really?
Because I thought I would never reach that stone again. And it was just the smell. It was the smell and it was the sight of it. And I just remembered every feeling I had as a child there.
That's crazy.
And I couldn't have been happier. It was maybe one of the most happy moments of my entire life. Oh, I feel choked up thinking about it. Oh, dear.
I'd send some tissues over if I could.
Oh, no. Thank you.
These virtual interviews, that's not possible here. So
no.
No, that's a really nice story actually.
But yeah, I think that was one of my happiest moments, and that was just the natural surroundings. Because at Castle Rig, you are literally surrounded by mountains. You see Skiddaw. They're right round you. It's the most beautiful spot, this stone circle. And yeah, I just always remember looking at that picture, thinking I'll never be there, and there I was. And it was really, honestly, truly the most fulfilling moment I've ever experienced. Yeah. I think it's because I thought I'd lost it.
Yeah.
And there I was. Yeah.
And there you were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, I'll have to check that place out. It sounds pretty special.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's right near Keswick. It's easy to find, actually.
Yeah. Nice. Oh, nice one, Kat. Thanks for today. That's kind of the end of my questions, really. But there's a little section at the end, which I call Turn the Table. And that's where the guest gets to ask me a question if they want. They don't have to, but they can if they want. Do you have a question today?
I do. And it's a two-parter, actually.
Oh, two.
And it is, where in the world do you personally feel your happiness and why?
As in countries or...
Just literally, yeah, it can be a country or it can be just spot. It doesn't matter. It could be a living room.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think I couldn't say anywhere in the world. I've got so many places that I really like. Obviously visited, not I think I'd say I'm the most happiest when I'm near the ocean.
Oh.
I love coastal walks. I love just being by the coastline. I'm not that fond of getting in the ocean, to be honest with you, especially here in the UK. It's freezing, but I'll dip my toes in Mexico or some Caribbean country, But no, I just love being by the ocean, and it doesn't matter whether it's wind, rain, or shine. Even on the windy, rainy days, I sometimes feel more alive if I'm next to the coast. Yeah, I just love taking myself to the coastline and just looking out at the ocean and the beauty of it. The seabirds singing just makes me feel so like away from everything.
I love that.
That's what
I can completely understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and it's so vast, isn't it, that it makes it feel like it could swallow you up.
Exactly.
But it's this beautiful. Yeah.
That's what.
Love that.
Yeah, I love dramatic, like when the waves are crashing against the rocks, and it's quite scary, but. It's so alive. You just feel so alive when you're in them moments.
I was born near the coast. I was born on the North Sea. I was born in East Anglia, so I was born on the coast. And I know exactly what you mean. It's that feeling of sort of it's as gentle as it is dangerous. Or is it, it's a really strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I went on a road trip in December, just gone down to Cornwall for 2 weeks. Initially, It was supposed to be for like 2 or 3 days. I thought I'll just go down. Like, from Wiltshire, I was in work, and I thought it was when the tier system was in, and Cornwall was tier 1 and the rest of the country was tier 2 or 3. So I took myself down to Cornwall. I thought it's tier 1. I can go and have a little good time. And long story short, though, I ended up staying down there for like 2 weeks because I started doing a bit of the coastline, and then I thought I just want to see more and more and more. So I ended up driving the whole coastline of Cornwall, basically starting from the south all the way along the south coast, heading west until I got to Land's End, and then back up the north coast until I left Cornwall, basically.
Oh, well, I love that. I mean, that coastline is fantastic. One of the most dramatic coastlines I've ever laid eyes on.
You should have seen the waves in Newquay, like just round the corner, not where the beach, well, kind of where the beach is. I walked a little along the coast. Oh my God, the waves are just pounding the rocks there, and they were just, splashing everything. It was just amazing.
It's the noise as well, isn't it? That noise
the rumble.
Is just...
Yeah. So that's me. That's what I like. But I like other things, obviously. But I think, answering your question, that's where I think I feel the most at peace. And
I love that.
Yeah. I want to go to the coast now.
I know. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was thinking, I was looking at me Wiltshire garden, thinking, I could do with the coast.
I'm only 20. I'm not even 20 minutes away, actually. I might even take myself down there now, thinking about it.
You'll have to now you've said it. Yeah.
Nice one, Kat. Thank you so much for talking today, and thanks for being so open about everything. I really appreciate that.
That's okay. I'm just really pleased you even invited me on. I thought that was really sweet of you. I know, obviously, I bugged you for it, but it's nice that you agreed.
Well, no, it's great. I'm so happy that people want to come onto the podcast and talk about things because, obviously you're talking about your problems, but you're going to be helping people, hopefully, through these podcasts,
Exactly. I think that's what makes all the difference.
Yeah, an influence to anyone that's kind of in the same position or just likes the idea of what you've been doing and things like that. It's and that's what these podcasts are for, really, to benefit people and to try and give them ideas and encourage them to get out there and enjoy the outdoors and see if they can fix their minds freely.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think if just one person just tries, just gives that one little go, and I know it's incredibly difficult because I've been there and I've had a really difficult time. And I know how hard this sounds. I know it sounds that it's impossible for you, but it is possible. We're just here to say it's possible, and just to please try, just for your own sake, for yourself, just to try. Yeah.
And just going back to quickly to the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned something about you and your partner had a hiking group. Is that right?
Yeah, we do. We walk. Well, we've had a few actually over the years for different things. Sometimes it was just for certain challenges, and sometimes it's mates. But yeah, we've had a few different little walking groups actually over the years.
Cool. And do you have like a group page or anything, like anywhere people can get in touch with you or that kind of thing?
No, not anymore. But we do have a little YouTube channel called Tea in Valhalla.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll put the link to that in the show notes to this podcast. So anyone listening to this, if you go to the show notes, that link will be there if you're interested in seeing what Kat and her partner get up to and the friends and all that jazz.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, cool.
Go and have a look.
I will. I'm gonna head to the coast and I'm gonna watch some of your videos while
I love it. Yes, well done. Yeah.
Okay, Kat. Great chatting.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
You too.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Well, that was a fun little chat with Kat. She's full of beans and so enthusiastic about everything she talks about. Personally speaking, I would never have guessed, just by talking to Kat, that she suffers from anxiety and agoraphobia. This just clarifies even more how mental disorders go unnoticed a lot of the time. But with the power of the outdoors and the amazing support Kerry and Kat give each other, it seems like she has a well-controlled grasp of her disorders and lives life to its full potential. She's also changed the career into one that suits her and one that she loves. Win-win. If you'd like to check out Kerry and Kat's adventures, I'll leave their YouTube channel in the show notes. They have some great hiking videos, which are both insightful and fun. Kat's story really is heart-touching, and it just makes me wonder how many more people are out there with similar disorders that would benefit off the great outdoors. Hopefully this podcast episode will encourage a few. Thank you once again for tuning in. If you want to join us over on Facebook and Instagram, then search for My Meditation Podcast. I'll leave the links to both in the show notes, as well as the link to the official My Meditation podcast channel, which you're more than welcome to subscribe to. The Facebook and Instagram page offer positive, inspiring and light-hearted quotes, photos and videos designed to bring a little happiness into your life. If you found any value from this podcast, I'd highly appreciate it if you could rate it and review it. And if you're feeling extra passionate, then please feel free to share it with the world and spread the word. It all helps the channel grow, which in turn means we can reach more people, which means helping more people. These podcasts are getting released every fortnight, so I hope you can join us for the next, and who knows, it could be about an interesting hobby or activity that could possibly be a life changer for you. Until then, take care and have fun, folks. Peace.